Hi guys, I recently made this cute little tote bag by Noodlehead Patterns. It's called the Crescent Tote, and I was really surprised at how quickly it went together. It has a zipper pouch pocket on the front. It has a hidden zipper pocket on the inside. A link to the pattern is down below. So that's what we're gonna work on today. So why don't you come over to the work table and let's get started. Now the pattern itself gives a whole lot of really good information to start off with. It tells you on this very front page that we're gonna be using a 1/4 inch seam allowance through the whole thing. Now if you're going to be doing any top stitching, which the pattern does call for some, you're gonna use 1/8 of an inch for your seam allowance. But just kind of keep in mind, unlike doing quilting, you're going to be using 1/2 of an inch seam allowance for the whole thing. It calls for an outer fabric, and in this case I'm going to use this lovely green, and then the lining fabric I'm using this off-white with the gold stripes. I also had to cut interfacing. I used Pellon's Shape Flex interfacing to do the majority of my interfacing, but the outer portion of the bag calls for a slightly heavier interfacing, in which case I used fusible fleece. That gives the bag a little bit of extra body. You can see here, it allows the bag to stand up. It has a good shape to it because it has the fleece included. The handles are using a belting, a strapping. The other thing that we need, the pattern calls for 2 zippers, an 8-inch zipper, which is going to go on the outside of the bag. And then it also calls for a 6-inch zipper. If you don't have an 8-inch zipper, but you have a 9-inch, you have a 12-inch, you have another size zipper that is larger than what's expected, that's perfect. Go ahead and use that zipper. Remember, zippers with the plastic teeth can always be cut down to a smaller size. I am going to make one adjustment to the pattern. The pattern itself doesn't call for any kind of stabilization, any kind of a stiffener other than the fusible fleece on the bottom. But the one I'm going to make today, I am going to make that little revision because I kind of want to see how it turns out. I pre-cut it to be the size of the bottom of the bag. I brought the size in by about 1/2 of an inch, and then I'm going to put some feet on, so I poke some holes. I wanted to show you guys how I fuse my fleece to my fabric. First off, make sure that the bumpy side of the fleece is facing up, because that side has all the glue dots to it, and that's what's going to adhere itself to the back of your fabric. I arm myself with a press cloth and with some water. Just water. You don't need anything special. Cover up my fabric, and I just give it a bit of a spritz to moisten the press cloth. And then from that point, I can then use a hot iron to press everything out. And you're gonna see some steam come up. That's a good sign. And we're done. What that does is it just adds a little extra heat, a little steam to melt those glue dots and keep your fabric nice and pliable and well fused. Okay, so I did that. I used that process on all of the pieces that I needed fleece for. Now the pattern calls for 20 inches of belting or strapping for each one of your handles. You can see that it is 1.5 inches wide by 20 inches, and it's a pretty thick, sturdy strapping. The pattern asks for you to mark from each end, just 4 inches down, and I don't know if you guys can see that little mark there, and I have another mark on this side. What I'm going to do is fold it over like so, kind of taco style, and I'm going to use Wonder Clips. The seam allowance that I'm going to use here is going to be pretty much 1/8 of an inch. I want to stitch very closely to the edge of the strapping. You'll be able to see better when you're holding one in front of you. You need to make sure that the edge of your fabric, or your strapping rather, is about 1/8 of an inch beyond where your needle is. I'm going to put my needle down, and I'm going to go forward slowly. And as I go along, I can then slip my clips out, and I'm actually squeezing the strapping together quite a bit to help it to flow through the machine easier. So we can see I've stitched all the way through. I've kept the edges of the strapping together. My strap is now very secure and ready to be put into the bag. One little reminder, please make sure that you backstitch at the beginning and at the ending of this seam. So now your handles are together and ready to go into the bag. Our next step is going to be to work on our front pocket. Now it's this front pocket that I'm referring to. It has the zipper coming across, fully lined interior pocket. Now the pieces that you're going to need for this section of the bag, you're going to need one of the front panels. Now the front of the bag, it's cut in two pieces, so you need the right front panel of the bag. You're going to need the pocket, the two zipper pocket panels. One is an outside fabric, one is your lining fabric. Your 8-inch zipper. You'll need your zipper strip, and then you're going to need this little tiny 2 by 1 inch tab of fabric. This is what we're going to work with first. So I'm going to take this tab of fabric and I'm going to fold it down by about an inch and give it a good press. It's with this now folded pressed tab that I'm going to attach to the end of my zipper. Keep in mind that you have this little metal piece at the end of your zipper. You want your fabric to butt up just against the little metal piece, and you're going to stitch 1/8 of an inch away from that fold to attach your fabric to your zipper. Since we're working with inserting a zipper, we are going to change the presser foot of our machine from the utility foot, which we normally sew with, to a zipper foot. Now the next thing I'm going to do is work on putting my zipper together on my exterior fabric. The pocket panel is a bit wider than it is tall. Make sure that you're working on the wider edge. I'm going to place my zipper pull side up. I'm going to turn it face down and line up the edge of my zipper, not the tab, but the zipper, end of the zipper with the edge of the fabric. Really spans the entire width of my pocket panel. I will then pin my zipper to my pocket panel. The big thing to remember here is that the entire length of your zipper tape matches up with the edge of your zipper pouch. So I've put my pins all the way across and I'm going to stitch down. When you use a zipper foot, you want to make sure that the edge of the zipper foot is following along the teeth, not riding on top of the teeth. But you can feel a little ridge here where the teeth meet the zipper tape. That's where you're going to let the presser foot follow along. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, the first couple of stitches, when you're trying to get past the zipper pull, it is kind of a clumsy undertaking. Don't be deterred by that. You're really just trying to make sure that the zipper stays and in line with the edge of your fabric. So this is what I have so far. Now I do need to get the lining portion of my pocket done. So to do that, I'm going to take my lining fabric. You want to line it up with the panel itself. It needs to match exactly. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sew it the same way I just sewed the zipper onto the zipper panel. This time it's going to go a little bit faster. I did backstitch at the beginning and at the end of both of those seams. So I now have the outside of my pocket, the inside of my pocket, and they both match together, and they're gonna go onto the front of the bag. Okay, so it would be at this point where if I had decided that I wanted to put in a little handmade tag, add a little bit of extra pizzazz, I suppose, to my bag, then I could do it. With the pocket as it is right now, I would mark on the outer fabric only where I wanted my handmade tag to go. I would make sure that it was placed on the inside, only going through the outer fabric. It's not going to show on the inside of your pocket. You want it to be kind of a secret thing that people look at it and say, oh, you did not make that. And you said, yes, actually I did. Here we are with the pocket all done. The front right panel of your bag is going to receive the pocket right on front. But if you notice, there is no curve to the pocket like there is a curve to the right front panel. What you're going to do is line up this 90-degree straight edge on your pocket and pin. So what I have here are 3 edges that are pinned across the top with the zipper tape, down the left edge to my bottom edge. If I turn it around, you can see this is part of my lining fabric. I did not pin this side because once I've finished sewing across, down, and across the bottom, then I'm going to flip it over and stitch from this side. And I do need to change my presser foot. Again, I'm moving from my zipper foot back to my utility foot. It's a basting stitch, so I can use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I do not have to back stitch on this at all. And on my zipper tape, I did not change back over to a zipper foot. I'm using an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. That's a seam allowance that allows me to stitch the zipper tape down, but I'm not stitching very close to the zipper at all. I just want to get this piece secured on the front of my pouch. So this is what I now have. As I was going across the end of my zipper here, I kept in mind the fact that there's a little metal piece. I need to make sure I do not sew over that little metal piece because of course it's going to break your needle. The other part that you do have metal on is right here. Avoid that one like the plague also because it'll break your needle. So now I'm going to flip my panel over and I'm going to start right down here, right below the zipper, because I don't want to have any contact with that zipper stop. And I'm going to follow the edge, that curved edge of the bag. Okay, so here we have it. I went to this point, which is just below where the zipper stopper is. Now I can trim. I'm not going to trim all the way to my interfacing, my fusible fleece. I'm going to trim to the edge of the green so that my pocket will now have the same shape as the outside of the bag. So there we go. At this point, I need to cover up the top of the zipper tape because it's kind of unsightly. There is the zipper strip that I'm going to use. I'll fold it in half and then cover that bit. So I have the zipper strip that I folded the cut edges in toward the middle and gave it a quick press. So now it's going to lay nice and flat to cover up my zipper, that zipper tape. It makes it look a lot neater. So what I'm gonna do is switch out my presser foot again so that I can get closer, stitch closer to my zipper, stitching down, doing a top stitch to stitch down the zipper strip. Look at how nice and clean and neat that is. The zipper is completely on. The tape is covered. It looks like it is just one big piece. I'm going to now take it and match it up with the left front panel. I'm going to pin down the center and then I'm going to stitch them together using a 1/2 of an inch seam allowance. I'm using my regular utility presser foot again, and I want you guys to be super careful as you're doing this step. Remember, the end of your zipper, that zipper stopper is in play. So when you're going over the end of your zipper, just keep in mind that it's there and you want to go slowly, okay? Make sure you go slowly. Here's the front of my bag. I'm going to press the seam over to the side and then do a top stitch coming down on this side just to keep it secure. Remember, you're using an 1/8 of an inch when you're doing any top stitching. That looks so good. Guys, check it out. I have a nice top stitch going on here to hold down the seam allowance that's in the back of the bag. If I didn't do that top stitch, then as I use the bag, that seam allowance was gonna flip, it was gonna open up, it's not gonna be as secure, and it's not going to look as good. If you hold your front panel now against your back panel, you'll see that they're the exact same size, and that is what we want. So the thing that I have to do now is make the pocket panel. I need to mark where the stitching is going to be for the zipper. The instructions want me to make markings 1 inch in from the top. So I'm just gonna put a little mark on either side of my 1 inch line on the ruler there. It also wants me to make that same horizontal line 3/8 of an inch below this one. 1, 2, 3, that line just above your 1/2 inch, and I'm going to connect my dots there. So I have these two parallel lines. Now I'm gonna come in by 5/8 of an inch right there. So with my lining fabric face up, I'm going to find the center. All I did was folded my fabric in half to make a crease. There's my center. Now the instructions want me to make a mark 2.5 inches from the top edge. So I'm going to take my handy dandy ruler one more time, get it really straight. Right on that center, I draw a line. So this is now 2.5 inches from the top at the center. I'm going to take my interior zip pocket, find the center also. A quick finger press will yield you a nice indicator for where the center is. And I'm going to line up my centers there and there, and I can pin. The instructions now want for me to stitch around that blue box that I just made. So I'm going to put some more pins in it. I'm not breaking my thread, I'm just sewing around the box. 4 stitches makes that. So now I have my zipper pocket that's attached to the inside. Instructions now tell me that I need to cut this piece open. A sharp pair of scissors. My scissors are actually serrated so that I can get a nice grip on the fabric as I'm cutting it. You can see that I made two little arrows kind of from the ends and then the dotted line. It's the dotted line and those two arrow pieces that I'm going to actually cut on. And when you cut those arrow pieces, make sure that you're not getting too far in toward the end. I left my two little arrow pieces, I'd say they're about 1/2 inch wide. So now I have a hole going in the middle. This is where the magic happens. I'm going to invert this, push everything through that hole. And when I push it through the hole, I'm gonna just kind of finger press around so that the seam is flat. You can employ your pins for this. Make sure your pins are glass head pins. They're not plastic head pins because you are going to hit it with the iron and you don't want those plastic head pins to melt and cause problems for your fabric. Okay, so this is the space where your zipper is going to hang out. I'm going to take my matching zipper and it's going to fit right inside that little space. Right there. Now remember I said that if your zipper is a little bit longer than the size zipper that the pattern asked for, that's okay because you can always make your zipper smaller. My zipper is an 8-inch zipper and the space that it requires is 6 inches. So what I'm going to do is make sure that my zipper pull is through the hole. The end of the zipper, the closed end, is hanging extra. And I'm going to stitch all the way around and basically cut off this extra bit right here. I had pinned my fabric so that I could press it. I'm gonna take those pins out now and pin my zipper in at the proper place. Just something to think about as you're pinning, make sure that the fabric is an equal distance on either side of the zipper teeth. All right guys, so I have pinned all the way around. I'm going to stitch 1/8 inch, as close as I can, all the way around my zipper. I will take out my zipper foot again. So there we have it. The zipper is completely put in. It looks so professionally done. Yay, you're gonna be a rock star. Look at this. Ooh, it opens up really nicely. Now I do have this extra tail on the back. I'm gonna go ahead and clip that off. The zipper is smaller. Now it's to finish putting together the pouch. Simply done. I'm gonna take the lining fabric, I'm gonna fold it up so that it meets that top edge, and I'm going to sew up, across, and down. Make sure that as you do it, you fold down the actual lining of the bag so that you don't stitch through that. Guys, I just put in the zipper pouch. I stitched all the way around. Look at this thing. Now back to business. So we now have to start putting the bag bits together. We're gonna sew the front and the back lining pieces together. We're also going to sew the exterior front panel and back panels together. Remember to make your seam allowance be 1/2 inch going all the way, okay? So we've gotten through 2 of the challenging parts of this bag. First one was to put in the outside zipper pocket. The second one was to put in this interior zip pocket. As long as you make the correct markings, this is gonna go in pretty easily. It didn't give me any trouble this time, or the first time, or the other times. Just follow the instructions. So the last bit is going to be to put the bottom of the bag onto the side panels. Now this part is tricky simply because it is curved. If we were looking at straight lines, that's not a big deal. But when it comes to curves, it means that we are going to be employing these things like you would not believe. All right, guys, so I have to admit, I have a bit of a problem. I don't follow instructions very well. On the first one that I didn't put any extra stuff in it. I followed the instructions exactly like the pattern told me. As I said at the beginning of the video, there is no extra stabilizing going on here. There is a fleece lining like it's supposed to have. On my lining fabric, it's the regular interfacing. Really guys, it doesn't give a whole lot of stability. If I put, I put my wallet in here, it's gonna sag on the bottom. Can you guys see that? It just kind of sags on the bottom. So here's where I break rules. I have my regular interfacing on the lining fabric like the instructions told me to do, but hey, I wanted a little bit of extra stabilization for the base of my bag. And so what I did was I marked where I wanted to put some feet on a piece of cardboard. I cut the cardboard to be about 1/2 inch smaller than the bag base. what it's supposed to be. I mark my places where I'm gonna put my feet. I punch a hole not only in the fabric, but also in the cardboard so I can stick those feet through and secure them. Guys, make sure that they're secure. And voila, we have feet now attached to the base of what is going to be our bag. I'm going to show you how to put this piece, the lining piece, onto the lining portion of the bag. Like I said, it takes a whole lot of pinning. I want you to start by marking the center up and down like this, and then I'm going to do the same thing long ways this way. Now I can make my marks here. So now I'm going to have 4 little blue marks. These 2 marks that are farthest apart, those are going to be along the side seams of your bag lining. You don't have to mark the bag lining on those side seams, but you are going to have to mark the top and the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to take my bag lining, I'm going to open it up like this, match up where my seams come together, just like that. And then I'll mark here, because this is the middle, and I'll mark here. And I'm gonna put my pen marks on the outside so I can see where I am. Guys, I understand nobody likes pinning, but it's necessary. So I'm going to line up the mark on the base of my liner to the mark on the side panel. I'll match those up with pins, and I'm going to do all of my pinning with the base piece facing me. It helps with the curve as you pin. I'm gonna come out to the side seam, match that up with the next spot, and now I have this gapey thing going on. Okay guys, I have a million pins going on here. I made clips on the bag panel right here, little panel clips all the way around. That kind of helps to ease those edges together. I'm going to now sew along that edge using a 1/2 inch seam allowance because that's what the pattern calls for. I'm only going to go seam to seam and do one side. Then we'll go back and clip and pin the other side. Yes, I am keeping all of my pins in because I want everything to stay secure. Okay, so here is 1/2 done. I'm gonna get the other half done. All right, so my grand experiment, getting the feet on the cardboard and inside the base of this bag, is complete. For now, it's in. I'm not hating it. So the next step is going to be to get my straps put on. So the pattern wants me to make a mark from the center of my bag at the top edge, 2 1/4 inches on either side of that center line. That's where my handles are going to attach like this. And I'm gonna use my Wonder Clips again, but I just want them to stay. Pins are not going to hold this strapping fabric very well, so you need to make sure that you're gonna use something that's gonna hold them on. I'll clip them here. I've made marks on the other side as well, 2 1/4 inches on either side of the center mark, and I'm gonna put my handles on the back side also. When I place my handles on, I just use that 2 1/4 inch marking for the inside edge of the strapping on both sides. So let me stitch that on real quick. So I have the handles of my bag are attached. I just used a 1/4 inch seam allowance to attach them at the top edges right here and also on the back. Okay, so now it's time to attach the lining fabric to the exterior fabric. The way that they had wanted for you to do it is as you are sewing together the side seams of your lining, you leave a space on the side because we're gonna be able to turn the bag inside out this way. We're going to stitch all the way around the top edge of the bag and then turn it inside out using that side hole. So the back of the bag lining is a side that has that zipper. The front of the exterior, of course, has the zipper pouch. We're gonna put the zipper pouch side into the lining like this, and then we're gonna match up the edges, pin, and sew all the way around using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. The magic. There's my side hole, stuffing my stuff through. Everything pushes right on through to the bag, right there. So my next step is going to just press and pin around the outside edge to make sure that I don't have lining fabric poking its way outside. It needs to stay on the lining, right? And do a top stitch all the way around, then I have to stitch up that lining hole. Here's my lining hole. Here I am gonna just top stitch it real quick to make sure that the lining stays on the inside and does not show on the outside. I'm sewing 1/8 of an inch from the top. Hey guys, guess what? I'm done. I'm done. My little baggy bag is all done. Got my cardboard in, Got my feet on so that if I put anything into my bag, I have a nice solid base. That's so good. I do have a lot of threads that I still need to trim, but I got my straps on. I have my zipper inside. Look at that. My pouch is ready to go. I'm so excited about that. I have my pouch out here also with a nice clean zipper. That out. Oh, the lining. So there's the bag, the finished bag, guys. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget that the pattern for this bag, it's the Crescent Tote by Noodlehead. The link for that pattern is down below. There's also a link to my website. You can sign up for our newsletter there so that you'll get all the updates on classes, on tutorials here in the shop. And if you're looking for another bag to work on, try the Range backpack, which will be in the link right here. Click on that link and it'll take you right to that tutorial. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.